For 4 years, the news media lived off a steady stream of spicy and scandalous antics coming out of the White House, much of which was intentionally leaked to the press. Now, though, the Washington Post and other news outlets are noting there hasn't been a single leak, titillating or otherwise, out of the Biden White House, leaving the media thirsty for something. The leaks out of the Trump White House were a steady drip, 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 ranging from personal gossip like the sexual travails of staffers Hope Hicks and Rob Porter to West Wing infighting, where everyone seemed ready to kneecap their rivals.
Reince Priebus was essentially publicly humiliated by current White House staff.
And there was more, including that New York Times op-ed from an anonymous insider who wrote,
Trump engages in repetitive rants, and his impulsiveness results in half-baked, ill-informed, and occasionally reckless decisions.
Even politicians got in the act. After a bipartisan group of senators met with Trump, someone leaked what he said about countries like Haiti.
Why do we want these people from, quote, all these countries here?
As the Washington Post reported, reporters drank lustily from the fire hose of leaks that emanated from the West Wing during the past 4 years. So, now what?
The president-elect has chosen the first top member of his new administration. That's his longtime advisor, Ron Klain.
If you can't readily identify Biden's chief of staff, you're not alone. And that's the way this White House wants it. As the Washington Post says, the pipeline has gone dry. Presumably that means those lucrative tell-all book deals for reporters have gone dry too. Yeah, Dan, Lothian, as you know, all these reporters, anytime Trump had any kind of interaction with them, it was another chapter in the book. But have you ever seen an administration that was as dry as this one? I mean, certainly not Clinton or Obama. I can't remember the last time there was sort of nothing coming out that was either even you know, policy-wise leaked information. Even on this new proposal, it's nothing.
Well, I mean, if we go back to the Obama administration, it does feel like President Biden is borrowing a page from the Obama years. It feels very different. It feels extreme because we've just come off 4 years, whereas you pointed out, rightly so, that there were all these leaks happening, right? And now suddenly it all stops, and it feels very shocking. But going back to the Obama administration, I remember we were constantly frustrated in that we couldn't get information outside of, you know, the typical information that they wanted us to get because President Obama made it clear early on that he did not want anything leaking from the White House. There was a quote I decided, am I just imagining this or did it really happen? So I went back and looked up and I found a quote from David Sanger of the New York Times who said, quote, "This is the most closed control freak administration I've ever covered." If you recall, you know, the Obama administration leaned on the Espionage Act, right, to put pressure on whistleblowers who were leaking information to journalists. So it's not the first time that this has happened. It's just a little jarring coming off the leak fest that happened under Trump.
Well, look, leaks are, of course, the mother's milk of political reporting. There's all sorts of leaks. Now, the Trump administration leaked everything. You remember that one of the staffers in there in his tell-all book said that he wound up using Kellyanne Conway's computer and she had left her emails up there, and it demonstrated that she was leaking like a sieve to just about every reporter in Washington. So the fact that the leaks of dirt have dried up speaks to the fact that professionals are now working in the White House and tells you something about the low quality of the Trump White House. But, you know, I think it behooves journalists to be careful with leaks. The Biden White House is still leaking, but they're leaking out stuff that's favorable to them, not the dirt. Perhaps some dirt will come out later, but, I think everyone has to trust, but be wary of where this information is coming from at all times. And by the way, anybody in government that's watching this who wants to leak, Keller at WBZTV.com. Sorry, Emily.
Well, yeah, those leaks were also, and Jack Schaefer had a good piece in Politico about this. The leaks were also a sign of what chaos there was within the White House. There were these warring factions. There was Jarvanka versus the Bannon people and the Miller people, and so they were all not only angry at Trump sometimes, but also trying to get at each other. One of my favorite leakers was apparently Trump himself, who would appear sometimes as a senior White House official in stories, which I thought was really rich and awesome. Honestly, it's soap opera stuff. And I know it's fun for reporters and exciting for reporters and does make it into the book chapter. As a consumer of news, if I want to read about or if I want to find out about soap operas in the White House, I will watch Scandal on Netflix. I am very happy to have the White House correspondents' attention on policy and implications of actual policy matters.
Boo.
And to the point Joanna just made, I was going back and forth before we met up to talk about this stuff, about whether the leak fire hose in the Trump years was ultimately beneficial or detrimental to us as a polity. I have no use for the stories about whether Trump is in a good or a bad mood. The stories about who's up and who's down in his personal orbit. The stories about whether we should be looking for a new tone from him, more calm, more presidential, coming up in just a week or two. Those stories, I think, kind of inured us to the massive dysfunction that the Trump White House displayed week in, week out. That said, the S-hole country leak was important and valuable. It captured his worldview. Yeah. The leaks before the presidential election that indicated that they were already thinking about ways they could subvert the results of the election if they didn't like them. That was really valuable, too. So if there's anything similarly egregious happening in the Biden administration, by all means, I hope it leaks out. But he accepts American democracy in a way that President Trump did not.